Good morning, students. It is time for Mrs. Berg's math class, and today is Monday. It's already April 13th, and how perfect! We are doing lesson 13 today, interpreting points on a coordinate plane. So for today's lesson, you're going to need your math notes. You're going to need two highlighters, and of course, something to write with. So hopefully you've got all that in front of you, and let's get started. All right? So let me zoom in a little closer here. So we're going to start today with just a quick little review on the coordinate plane. Again, these all lessons kind of still talk about working with the coordinate plane and plotting points and understanding how the plane is set up. 3.1, label each point on the coordinate plane with the appropriate letter and ordered pair. So down below the plane, let me move up a little bit, you'll see 4 points. We have point A, point B, point C, and point D. Quick reminder, the first number in an ordered pair is always your X coordinate, and the second number in an ordered pair is always your Y coordinate. So I'm just going to quickly go through each of my ordered pairs and put an X in a Y underneath the right number to match up with the right ordered pair. Now, make sure that we do pay attention to our ordered pairs, okay, because we need to make sure that we're noticing when there's a positive number and then when there is a negative number, so that the signs kind of also help you identify where you're going to place the points and what quadrant you're going to put the points on. So let's go ahead and quickly do A. It's at 7 and negative 5.5. So we always go X first, so over 7. And then this time we're going to go down to negative 5, and we see the point already sitting there. Let's label this A. And then, let me zoom in just a teensy bit more. This is again sitting at the 7, comma, negative 5.5 is the ordered pair. Next, we're going to plot point D, negative 8, positive 4. So we always start with the x-axis first. We're going to go over negative 8, up positive 4. The dot's already there. All we simply have to do is label it B and write the x and y coordinates of negative 8, positive 4. C is 3 and 2, so we're going to go over 3 up 2. There is C sitting at the 3, comma, 2 point. And lastly, we have negative 3.5. Let's go over negative 3 and then 0.5 and up just 0.2. That's that little dot right there. This is D. And once again, D is sitting at the negative 3.5, comma, 0.2. All right, that's all you have to do for that one. Just a quick little review. So let's go ahead and turn the page, get into today's lesson. 13.2, this is talking about account balances. So pretend like you've got a checking account and you have a job and you've been putting money in your checking account and you've been taking money out of your checking account. This graph shows the balance of a bank account over a 14-day period. Okay, so this is how much money was put into the account and any money taken out of the account in 14 days. The axis labeled, this one here, B, okay, right here, B, shows the account in dollars. So here's all your money. So this is always the y-axis is your vertical axis. Your x-axis, according to the problem, represents the day. So this is your x. So this is your day, days 1 to 14. And up here, this is your money. Money going in, money coming out. Question 1 says, estimate the greatest account balance. On which day did it occur? Okay, so we're going to go up here and we're looking at when do we have the most money in our account. So we're going to find the highest point, okay, somewhere up here in obviously the positive money. So I'm looking, I notice way over here, I'm going to circle it. In fact, I might just circle it and highlight that circle, is the highest point. So this is going to be when we had the most money in our account, all right? So if I kind of just come a line all the way over, kind of between the 400 and 350. So I'm going to estimate and say we had $375. What day did it occur? Well, let's just trace on down. And I noticed right here, it occurred on the 14th day. Okay, that's all you have to do for that. question. Number 2, estimate when the least account balance. So where is the dot that shows when our money had the least amount of money in our account? So we're going to come down here and obviously look at the negatives, and the dot that's the lowest right here, I'm going to highlight it. And if I come over, let's see if we can figure out about how much money. That's not a very straight line. We're just slightly, not quite at negative $100. So maybe I'm just going to estimate and say we have negative $80. Which day did this occur? Well, let's come up. And I see that it occurred on the 11th day. So 11th day. At what point, what does the point 6 negative 50 tell you about the account balance? Okay, well, let's come over to 6, come down to 50. That's this point right here. So what is this telling you? If you had to interpret, okay, that point, what could you say? Well, it's the 6th day and our balance was negative 50. So that's literally all we have to say. So we can say on the 6th day, the balance was negative $50. So that's what it's asking us to explain. 4 says, how can we interpret this would be the absolute value of negative 50 in the context? So based upon this example, well, we should remember absolute value of this number here just means it's a positive 50, okay? Because remember, absolute value is distance from 0. So it has nothing to do with the negative and positive numbers. So it's distance away from 0. So basically, because it is 50 and it is away from 0, we can pretty much say that this is the amount due to the bank. Because if you're ever in a negative balance at the bank, that means you actually owe the bank money. You didn't have enough money in your account, so now you're in the negatives. We sometimes call this being in the red. So now you owe that you're overdrawn from your account by $50. Definitely not a place anybody will would want to be. Okay, so next example, which I think is also our last example for today's lesson. High and low temps. The coordinate plane shows the high, okay, and the low temperatures in Nome, Alaska for 8 days. The axis labeled T, okay, that's this one here, represents the temperature. So this is our y-axis, and this is the temps. So we have 28 degrees all the way down to negative 6 degrees. The d-axis, which is our x-axis, represents the day. So these are the days. And it's said over 8 days. So you can see how it actually goes all the way up to 9 days. All right. This 0 here, this 0, 0, guys, what this represents is freezing. Okay, so the 0 temperature means it is now freezing. Anything underneath that and the negatives would be below freezing. Anything above here would be positive, so it would be above freezing. So the one thing I needed you to have your 2 highlighters for is because in the color picture, these are different colors. So we have to kind of color code them. So let's start with grabbing one of your colors, and we're going to, if you notice, guys, if you look at this graph, there's 2 dots for every day. 2 dots on day 1, 2 dots on day 2, 2 dots on day 3, all the way through. That's because for each day, it's giving us the high temperature of the day and the low temperature of the day. So let's go ahead. I'm going to use my yellow. You can use yellow or another color, and these are going to be the high temps of the day. So we'll start with the high temps of the day, okay? So you want to highlight, okay, Okay, the top dot in day 1, top dot in day 2, top dot in day 3, top dot in day 4, top dot in day 5, top dot day 6, top dot day 7, top dot day 8. So those are all the highs on those particular days. Then we're going to have the low temps of the day, and I'm going to use a different highlighter color, so I'm just grabbing, I have orange. So now we're going to go through and we're going to highlight all the low temps. So again, starting at day 1, the lower dot is the lower temperature. So that's the lower dot, day 2 lower dot, day 3 lower dot, day 4 lower dot, day 5 lower dot, day 6 lower dot, day 7 lower dot, and day 8 lower dot is right there. Now we can actually solve the problem because we've got colors finally. So question 1A says, what was the warmest high temperature? So you're simply going to look at your graph and find the highest yellow dot, because the yellow dots were our highs. So if all these yellow dots, if I come right up here, that's the highest yellow dot, and that was at 28 degrees. 2A says, what was the coldest low temperature? So I'm going to look at my orange dots and find the lowest dot on the grid, and the lowest dot is right here. And it looks like that was at -2, -3 degrees. Coming back to 1A, write an inequality to describe the high temperatures H over the 8-day period. So let's see here. So what was our highest high? Our highest high was 28. Our lowest high was right here. And this was at 2. So we're going to write an inequality. We're going to say, we're going to put H right in the middle. We're going to say that the highest temperature was greater than 2 degrees, because this is our 2, so it's greater than 2 or equal to 2, but the highest temperature was less than or equal to 28. Okay, so in order to do that, quick review, we took our highest high, our lowest high, and that means if we had to write an inequality for this points on this coordinate plane, this is how you would write it. The high is greater than or equal to 2, but it's less than or equal to 28. So it's going to fall somewhere in between these two numbers. Going over to B, now we're going to write an inequality to describe the low. So the low. So let's find the highest low. Highest low would be right here, 26, and the lowest low, I think we already circled that, right, would be down here at -3. So if we had to write an inequality, we're going to say our low temperature, well, it's going to be greater than or equal to -3, our lowest low, but it's going to be less than or equal to 26, our highest low. So our low temperature is going to fall right in between these two numbers. They can include these two numbers, and they can be a variety in between. 3A says, on which days did the largest difference between the high and the low temperatures occur? Oh my gosh. Write down this difference. So we're going to go back up here. So what it's asking us is we have to find the day or days where it had the largest difference between the high and the low. So we're just going to go do that for all the points. So on day 1, we just had a tiny difference. It looks like there's only a difference of 2 degrees. So you're going to write a 2 next to that one. On day 2, we started at 26. We ended at 20. That's a 6-degree difference. On day 3, we started at 21 and we ended at 11. That's a 10-degree difference. On day 4, we started at 11 and we ended at 3. So 11 minus 3 that's an 8-degree difference. On day 5, we started at 13, ended at 10. 13 minus 10 is a 3-degree difference. Okay, on day 6, we started at 17 and we ended at 7. That's another 10-degree difference. On day 7, we started at 7 degrees and we ended at -3 degrees. That's a 10-degree difference. And lastly, on day 8, we start at 2 degrees. We ended at 1 degree. That's a 3-degree difference. Okay, so now which days had the largest? Well, I'm looking, I see there was a 10-degree difference there, a 10-degree difference there, and a 10-degree difference there. So I actually had 3 days. So that occurred on day 3, day 6, and day 7 with a 10-degree difference. B says which day or days had the smallest difference. Okay, so we do the same thing, but now we're looking for small. So I've got a 2 degrees here. That's pretty small. And then there were 2 other days at 3, but the smallest difference happened on day 1 with a 1 degree, I'm sorry, it was a 2 degree difference. Okay. And that is it for today's lesson, which means it is homework time. It is time for you to go back to the Google Classroom and do your practice problems with the Google document that I have attached to this lesson. Remember, we are now on lesson 13. Plus, you have one Khan Academy video for homework as well as the practice problems. Make sure you're still labeling your line paper, guys. Don't get lazy on me. And showing all your work and plotting all your answers on the line paper. Because when it's time to do our check-in this week, which actually will be tomorrow, Tuesday, you can use your practice problems. You can use all of your notes to do your check-in. Okay, check-ins are what's showing me that you're watching my videos and you're doing the practice problems and you're doing your cons. So go ahead and pause the video and we'll come back to check your work.
It's recording.
All right, guys, it's time to check those practice problems. See how you did on them, if you got them right or wrong. Problem number 1 is talking about the elevation of a submarine. You've got your first column, which represents your x coordinates, which is your hours. The 0 is 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, all the way down to 6 o'clock. You've got your second column, which is your y coordinates. This is your elevation. First thing I decided to do, because you had to make your own coordinate plane, is I noticed that my x's were just simply going from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 all the way to 6. So that made that part real easy. I'm just going to go 0 where they intersect and then just 1, 2, 3 all the way down to 6 p.m. Now my y is a little more tricky because I've got some pretty big numbers here. I also, did you notice, hopefully you did, that all of these are negative numbers. That's why I kind of drew the coordinate plane kind of a little bit odd. If you might have noticed that it's not nice and even, because I realized that my y's are going to be all down here on the negative. So I wanted lots of room, and I realized that all my points are going to be in quadrant 4. So that's why I made quadrant 4 so large, because quadrant 4 is x's are positive, y's are negative. Now I've got to decide how am I going to want to place my tick marks for my y coordinates, because I got really big numbers, so I can't just go 1, 2, 3, because I've got a range of my lowest number is negative 1,600 and my highest low is negative 365. So obviously I'm thinking maybe I'm just going to place my tick marks and skip count by 200s so I can have enough room. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do negative 200, negative 400, negative 600, negative 800, negative 1,000, negative 1,200, negative 1,400, and squeezing it in, negative 1,600. Okay, now that I've got my coordinate plane drawn, I can plot my ordered pairs. So starting with point A, it's at 0 and then negative 567. So 0 means I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to come straight down. I realize that about halfway between 400 and 600 would be my 500. So since it's 567, it's just going to be maybe just a little bit below that 500, and I'm going to label this point A. My B point is at 1 p.m. and now I'm at negative 892. So I'm going to come all the way down to 800. I realize that 900 would be right between them. So I'm just a little bit above that 900. This is point B. C, I'm going over negative 2. I'm going to come all the way down to that 1600. This is C. D is to the 3 p.m. down to 1200 and just a little bit over because it's 1289. That's D. 4 p.m. I'm at negative 990, so just above that 1000. E. F, I'm over at the 5 p.m. Negative 700. So obviously 700 would be right between my 6. So that's going to be maybe right around here. And at 6 p.m. I'm at negative 365. So here's my 400, just a little bit above. And this is G. That's all you had to do there. Didn't have to connect anything. Hopefully yours looked like mine. Number 2. The x-axis represents the number of hours. So this is this line right here. Before or after noon. Okay? So this is your time. The y-axis represents the temperature in degrees Celsius. So this is your temperature. Temperature. Okay? Now that we have that determined, at 9 a.m., it was below freezing. In what quadrant would this point be plotted? Well, here's my time. This is going to be the noon. So let's make a little, this is going to be 12 p.m. So if it's 9 a.m., it's really, here's 11 a.m., here's 10 a.m., here's 9 a.m. Okay, so here's where it is 9 a.m. And it says it's below freezing, which means it's going to have a negative y coordinate. So somewhere in quadrant 1, 2, 3, you'd find that point. B says at 11 a.m., okay, so 11 a.m. is right here, 11 a.m., it was 10 degrees. So I'm going to come up positive 10. So now I'm going to be somewhere up here in quadrant 1, 2. Quadrant 2. Okay. Flipping the page over. C says, choose another time and temperature. Then tell the quadrant where the point should be plotted. Okay, so let me just flip back over there. Let's pick another time. Let's say it's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe it's 6 p.m. and maybe it is negative 8 degrees. So let's say it is 6 p.m. and I'm going to just say negative. You could have picked a different time. You could have picked a different temperature. That was fine. Okay, because you got to choose. But because I picked 6 and negative 8, for me, it's going to fall into quadrant 4. Oops, I can't see that. Since I picked 6 p.m. and then I said it was negative 8 degrees, for my points, I'm falling in quadrant 4. You may have picked different points, meaning you might be in a different quadrant. So this is kind of subjective depending on what time you picked and what temperature you picked. What does the point 0, 0 represent in this context? Well, hopefully you were listening because I said the 0, 0 represents it is noon or 12 p.m. and this is when it is freezing. Okay, that's what the 0, 0 represents. Oops. On this coordinate plane, the 0, 0. Moving on to number 3. I think the rest of these are review problems. Yeah, these last 2 are review problems. Number 3, we have an inequality. H is greater than 42 and H is less than 60. That represents the height requirement for an amusement park ride, where H represents a person's height. Write a sentence or draw a sign or describe the rules as clearly as possible. So we kind of had a problem similar to this with amusement parks in a previous lesson. So basically, if I was going to make a rule, I'd probably say something like, in order to ride this ride, comma, you must be between 42 inches and 60 inches tall. That's what that inequality means. So as long as you're somewhere in here, you are tall enough to ride the ride. So you can't be too short and you can't be too tall. Last practice problem, number 4, solving these equations. All right, I gave you some workspace. Hopefully you work these out on your paper. So for A, to figure out what A means, remember this is where you isolate the variable. So I'm going to divide by 3. So my 3's cancel out, and then I'm left with A, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. For B, again, I've got to get B alone, so I'm going to subtract 3.3 from each side. These cancel out, so I'm left with B, and 8.9 minus 3.3 is 5 6/10. Number C, again, I've got to isolate the C, so I've got a fraction. So I'm going to have to multiply by their reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 4/1. And guys, I'm going to do that to each side. Okay, some of you forget that whatever you do on one side, you have to do to the other. They're equalities. This cancels each other out. So I'm left with the C by itself. And then on the left side, 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1, and 4/1 is simply 4. So 4 is what C equals. D, I gave you a hint. I told you you needed to take this fraction of this mixed number and change it into a fraction that has a denominator of 4. So before I even start my problem, I'm going to change this to 5 2/4. This way, my fractions have the same denominators. That's how you could, because we're adding, so they have to be the same. Now I can solve the problem. I need to get rid of this plus 4, so I'm going to subtract it from the right, and I'm going to then subtract it from the left. This way these cancel out to 0, and I'm left with D equals, well, 2/4 minus 1/4 is 1/4, and I bring down my 5. So D is equal to 5 1/4. Last problem, again, this is similar to A. I'm going to divide by 2. Okay, remember we call this number the coefficient. This way those cancel out, and I have E by itself. And now I have 6.4 divided by 2. And if I were to do that little division problem, 2 goes into 6 3 times, which is 6. Subtract, bring down my 4. 2 goes into 4 2 times, which is 4, which is 0. So E equals 3 2/10. There you have it. Hopefully you guys got them all right, or got more right than wrong. Again, please make sure you have corrected your homework. If you got them wrong, you've corrected them for the right answers. You've paid attention to me working through them so that when we do your check-in quiz tomorrow, you are set to go. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.